Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to check out Hex6d, a game that'll be launching on Kickstarter sometime in March of 2015. It's for 2 to 6 players for ages 8 and up, and the average play time is about 10 to 20 minutes. Very easy to play. So, describing this game is a little difficult without showing you the components, but just to quickly sum it up, you've got these tiles here, and you've got a number of hexes on these tiles, and you'll see numbers and letters on them. Now, the numbers and letters that you'll find on these tiles are representative of the numbers and letters that you'd find in a standard deck of playing cards. And your object is to get your pawns arranged onto these tiles in such a way to where the values that they're on will match the cards in your hand. And the first person that can do that will win the game. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, now before we begin, it's worth noting that this is a prototype copy, meaning that the components here are not representative of the final product. And even in some cases I've seen in Kickstarter campaigns, the rules are even subject to change. So take what I say here with a grain of salt, it's not set in stone. So here are the components. And as you can see here, there are modular boards. You've got some instructions here. I'm going to put these off to the side for right now. But as far as the modular boards are concerned, they can be arranged in such a way during game setup to where they can be rotated, whatever the case may be. But you'll have to sort of observe these little connectors. Some of these edges do not have connectors, as you can see here, while others do. There's one there, and one there. So each board has a number of different letters and numbers on it, again, typical of the letters and numbers that you'd find in a standard deck of playing cards. Here's a 5, here's a 6, here's a 10, Jack, King, Queen, so on and so forth. All the other tiles are similar to that one, except for this one. This is your start tile. You've also got pawns here. There's 4 of each color, and you've got 2 decks of playing cards. Okay, now I'm not going to touch on all of the rules found in the manual, but I will offer to give you the highlights. Just reading off the instructions in the manual just isn't very engaging in my opinion, so I may miss a few things. Now, as far as game setup is concerned, you'll place the start tile onto the table, and you'll lay out a number of these other tiles equal to the number of players in the game. So this would be a 3-player game here. Now, the manual does suggest some starting configurations here. Like this is a standard 3-player game setup. If you want to do a modified game setup, you can do this. But again, the boards are modular, so you can set up the game any way you want to customize your experience a bit. Each player will choose a color and take 3 of those pawns of that color. And they'll also shuffle the 2 decks separately, and each player will get 3 cards to form their starting hand. Alright, now a player's turn is very simple. They start with 3 cards in their hand. At the beginning of their turn, they'll draw a card from the deck so that they have 4, and then they'll play a card, put it into the discard pile, resolve its effects so that they have 3 cards again, and that'll end their turn. Now, as far as resolving effects, let's just say that this player played the 2 here, okay? And in order to show you what all of the different cards do, I'm going to opt to just focus in on the manual real quick because I don't have a photographic memory. Ace through 10 allows you to move 1 pawn a respective number of hexes. So if you play an ace, you can move 1 hex. 2 is 2 hexes, a 3 is 3 hexes, 4 is 4 hexes, and so on and so forth. So playing that 2 would allow me to move a pawn 2 spaces. So just to quickly illustrate that here, let's say that I was playing as yellow for right now. This is a hex, and this is a hex. So 1, 2. Okay? Very simple. Focusing back on this again. If you happen to play a jack, you can move an opponent's pawn 5 hexes. If you play a queen, you can move 1 or more of your pawns a total of 5 hexes. If you play a king, you can move 1 of your pawns anywhere from 1 to 5 hexes. And if you play a joker, everyone's cards or hand are passed to the right. No pawns are moved. Alright, now players will continue taking turns, moving pawns around, playing cards, that kind of thing, trying to get their hand to match the locations to where their pawns are on the board. For example, yellow player here has a 5 and a 7 in their hand. This pawn is on the 7, this pawn is on the 5. He just needs to get this pawn over here to this ace. Okay? So let's just say that it is yellow's turn. He goes ahead and draws a card, and what luck, there's a 3. I totally didn't plan that. So he's going to go ahead and play a card from his hand, this 3 here, so that he can move this pawn 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. Now that he's got all 3 cards matching the 3 locations on the board, you've got an ace for this one, a 5 for this one, and a 7 for this one, the yellow player would win the game. Now, just as a quick aside, there are some movement rules I didn't touch on. For example, pawns cannot jump over other pawns, and pawns cannot occupy the same space on the board. And this is important because the way your starting configuration is set up determines how difficult the game will be. If you end up with a starting configuration to where, like, the boards are separate from one another, this makes the game a lot harder to play because there's less ways to get from tile to tile to tile. So you can increase or decrease the difficulty that way. And you can also add a fourth pawn to your game. Again, the game comes with a total of 4 pawns of a particular color. You can add a fourth pawn to make everyone's lives a little bit tougher, because the more clustered you make things, the more pawns that are in play, the harder it will be to move around and to get to where you want to go. Alright, and there you have it, a very brief look at Hex6d. It's important to note that I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual, but hopefully this gives you a brief taste as to what you're in for should you decide to support this game. Speaking of which, the game should be launching on Kickstarter in March of 2015. Again, just like the components and the rules, that launch date is subject to change because sometimes it happens. I am recording on February 13th, Friday the 13th in fact, So yeah, it's like a month off from launching. So again, the Kickstarter date may change between now and then. But if you like what you see here, go check it out and support it once it does launch. It's a very easy to play, family-friendly game. So if you haven't already, check out my written preview at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com and subscribe. That way you can keep up to date on any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.